What's up, y'all? It's Deep Talk with T, episode 37. Today's topic of discussion is refilling your tank. The importance of refilling your tank cannot be understated. Everybody looks different at different points, and refueling is a big part of that. Because if we are at our best, if we've properly rested, we've properly refueled nutritionally, and even we're more than just our physical being. So if mentally and emotionally we're reset, we've recalibrated, we're centered, we know why we're doing what we're doing, it has a strong meaning for us, we again are prepped up to do what we intend to do physically, mentally, and emotionally, we look completely different than when we're depleted. And this realization first came to me after a hot yoga class. Actually, I had done 2 back-to-back classes. One of them I had properly prepared for and got through the whole thing and killed it. And the very next day I came back and I was not properly refueled. I didn't get either enough sleep, didn't get enough water, didn't get enough food, didn't get enough something. Didn't get enough of all of it maybe. But I looked completely different than the class before. I could barely get through it. I almost passed out. I had to if you know anything about Bikram yoga, the whole thing, especially when you're like a beginner, and I was not a beginner, the whole thing when you're a beginner is just to stay in the room and not leave the room. I had my first Bikram yoga session had probably been 9 years before this, but I was just so depleted of all the things that I needed that I couldn't carry on. My body wasn't going to do it anymore. It was just going to pass out, the natural response. There are things in our bodies that are mechanisms that get triggered. We trigger these mechanisms, and things happen automatically. A lot of times, that's when you sneeze. You don't choose to sneeze. Something like the hair in your nose is meant to catch dust and shit. The eyelashes on your eyes are meant to keep dirt from getting into your eyes. Like, everything has a purpose. Everything has a reason. So the things that we trigger in our bodies are there for reasons. If you're not properly refueled, your body will tell you, hey bro, we can only do so much before we pass out. We have to conserve certain energy so that we don't die. And the way that we keep certain mechanisms from getting triggered is by refueling certain mechanisms. Not everyone, obviously. This episode is on refueling your tank. Refueling your tank. And the implications of this are very far-reaching. You can see isolated moments, like my particular hot yoga experience, as one isolated incident, but the implications of it are far-reaching because as people, we have to be refueled. If you look as black people, look at our journey from Africa hundreds of years ago to here through the Orient, becoming oriented to America. There's still orientation happening. There's still change that needs to happen because the way that society interacts with black people is not one that is sustainable. That way is not sustainable. So we have to find new ways because the way that it's gone is not going to work. So that's just a side note. But it feeds right directly into the conversation because how a person looks when they're refueled looks completely different than when they're not. And if you are someone who if you are the descendant of slaves and your great-great-grandparents were slaves, and then your great-grandparents were an offshoot of them and didn't really have many opportunities, and then their kids, your grandparents, barely finished secondary school or elementary, whatever school, and you have been given physical labor jobs, and your conception of how to interact with the world economically is limited to what you've known. Your family doesn't have trust funds, your family doesn't have investments, your family doesn't have stocks, you haven't been taught about these things since you were young. You only know labor, and you only know hard work and elbow grease. That's all you can pass on because you can't teach what you don't know. So having a full tank is, to some degree, relative as shit because you are working with what you've got. So that's where pushing, raising the bar comes into place. That's where pushing the envelope of your humanity comes into place. The apple falling farther from the tree comes into place, because making sure that you are continually refilling your tank means that you're being inspired by what you do. It means that you know, again, why you're doing what you do. You know what you're doing, and you know why you're doing it. And it means something to you. Emotionally, it means something to you. I pause it emotionally because that's such a powerful one. If something doesn't mean something to you emotionally, the power is lost. When something means something to you and emotionally, there's so much power in that all you have to do is direct it and maintain it. If you direct and maintain emotional power, you can accomplish anything you can imagine. So make sure that your tank is full and go after accomplishing what you want. Love y'all.